Hello, folks. Welcome to Business Basics. We've been looking at 25 tips for how to drive accountability in your team. If you want to download the guides, then we'll give you the details for the website to follow this post. But in the meantime, I'm joined by my fantastic guest today, Andy Hemming, who's going to give us 5 tips around how to drive defined responsibilities in your team. Andy, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining.
Morning, Mark. Great to be here.
It's good to have you on. Thanks for coming. Andy, look, we're looking at 5 tips around how to drive accountability around the team by having well-defined roles. What's your first tip, Andy?
So I'd say the first tip, Mark, is to absolutely give clarity to your team members. And we do that through what we call positional contracts, job descriptions, essentially. Quite often when I go into a business, I'll ask the business owner, what would a great day look like for this person? And they'll give me an answer. And then I'll go and ask the team member and they'll the same question, and never do we get the same answer. Not that the team member isn't there with best intentions for the business, they absolutely are. But when we don't nail stuff down, usually people will gravitate towards the easier stuff rather than the stuff we're actually paying them to be there for. So if we tell them what a great day looks like, then we're going to get much better performance out of them. After all, clarity gives performance, doesn't it? So I think the thing is, if I remember my corporate job description, it was about 17 pages long. I don't think I ever read it. So I just pitched up and had a go. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. Well, actually, how many things can we focus on in reality? Probably 3 to 5 maximum. So if we tell people what their 3 to 5 main responsibilities are, we're much likely to get better performance out of them.
What's your second tip? Because we talk a little bit about KPIs, don't we? How do KPIs make a difference?
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to change something, you've got to measure it. Business is all about objectivity, isn't it? If we're subjective, if we're having conversations based on emotion rather than logic, then stuff tends to get a bit personal, and then management goes out the window because people don't want to have conflicting and personal conversations. Whereas actually, if we can nail this down to a number, then everybody's got something to shoot for. So I think those aren't to be treated as sticks, by the way. They're markers in the sand that we quite like to aim towards, aren't they? And then once people actually understand what result they're meant to achieve, then they can see what their performance leads to in terms of the overall organizational objectives. I think the thing for me is, it's nice to set these KPIs with a result to this is what we'd like to achieve. Now, actually, I can start to hold you accountable for it. And more importantly, you can start to hold yourself accountable as the team member. So again, clarity gives performance. If we just expect people to do their best, then they will. But what does that actually mean until we define what best looks like?
Coming to your third tip then.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a KPI and a goal? How do those two things differ?
Well, I don't think they do massively, do they? It's just goals are can be at any level. Goals become sub-goals, become sub-goals, become sub-goals. So KPIs, if you think about it, they are a performance outcome that we'd like to achieve. But KPIs are an outcome, an effect, in other words. What's the cause of that? Usually KBIs, so key behavioral indicators. So actually, we have to undertake an activity to cause a result. So actually, that becomes a goal in itself. Well, what's the activity that you're going to undertake today at what level? And even that can be brought back to sub-goals as well. So bringing everything down and chunking it down to a manageable level so we can, clarity, I've used the word 3 times now, create absolute clarity for what we expect from people, because then they can start to see what works and what doesn't, what they should stop doing, what they should do more of.
So far then we've got have a clear job descriptions, have clear performance metrics, have goal setting sessions was your third tip. What's your fourth tip, Andy?
Well, make sure that you communicate clearly what's expected, and that becomes part of your management system, doesn't it? So people should be reporting on a daily, in some cases, weekly in most cases, monthly in all cases, at minimum basis, so you can have an objective conversation around the outcomes of their performance. And actually what that allows you to do is then synergize and start to create better inputs to create better outputs. So that communication piece is at the center of all performance in organizations, isn't it? If we're not communicating that performance clearly, then how can we possibly expect to get a great outcome?
And finally then, so what about ongoing review, Andy? What's your fifth tip?
Well, I think the thing is, organizations change, don't they, as they scale. So if we take it back to when somebody starts a business, they're wearing multiple caps, they're doing multiple roles. The whole idea of growth is about leverage. In other words, dividing to multiply. In this case, we're talking about dividing roles down to multiply capabilities within businesses. So I think the thing is, as every business grows, roles will change slightly, processes will adapt to as the structure changes in the business, and we need to innovate our processes as well, because otherwise we're just going to get left on the shelf and beaten by our competition. So we need to constantly go back to our systems and processes, review whether they're still fit for purpose, update those processes as we need to, and that will include positional contracts and KPIs, because we want to keep improving our performance. So I think that cycle of management, in other words, the constant review of, does this still make sense in the light of the market that we're currently experiencing? Does this make sense in terms of the size and structure of the organization that we're in right now? All that needs constant review, because otherwise it will just stop being fit for purpose in the business as it grows.
Andy, it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you for sharing those 5 fantastic tips.
Great.
So, folks, if you want to find out more, download the guide. We'll put the links into this post, and you can find the other 20 tips from Andy over there in the guide.